Hello, welcome to Experience Church. My name is David, and thank you for being here with us today. Today I want to start actually with a question, and it's this question. What is love? What is love? Now, to quote, for those of you in the 90s, baby, don't hurt me. Baby, don't hurt me. No more. Maybe if you asked before, I don't know why you're not fair. I give you my love, but you don't care. So what is wrong? What is right? Anyone? Come on. No, give me a sign. Give me a sign. What is love? No? No? Okay. You wanted me to sing it. You wanted me to sing it. Welcome. For those of you who are new with us, we're starting a brand new series, as Tim mentioned. Love is for losers. And what I want to do in this series is, for those of you, by the way, ladies, some of you are like, yes, our first series on marriage. And for you, those of you guys are like, oh, man, I used to like this church. What's going on? And let me stereotype a little bit so we can all be on the same page before we begin. Ladies, when we're talking about love, us guys, we think about relationships the way most of us think about cars. We don't want to work on it, we just want it to work. Like, we don't want to work on the relationship, we just want the relationship to work. So whenever you come to us and say, we need to talk about our relationship, or we need to talk about after when David finished, I have all these questions, or we need to, pay attention to this. What we hear, us guys, we think, you have a problem and I have the solution. That's the way we think. But I don't know about you, but have you ever your car, I'm pretty sure it has, but have you ever stopped on the side of the road because, a dead battery or something? That happened to me this week, and I popped the hood, that's what we do. We pop the hood open. And I stare at that. I don't know why I popped the hood open. Ezekiel my son asked me, Dad, why did you pop the hood open? I don't know, that's what we're supposed to do, son. Just pop the hood open, get a phone call. I just call a friend of mine, Robbie, that lives in Ramona. But I thought about that in terms of relationships, because what I don't want to do with this series, I don't want you to treat it as a checkup on your marriage. I hope that for the next 4 weeks, you can treat this series as an internal signal, like a warning signal. Perhaps something that deals with something that is in you already, something internally. Because we're going to talk about relationships for the next 4 weeks. For those of you who have been divorced and you're in a transition, for those of you who are single and one day want to achieve a relationship, a meaningful relationship, for those of you who've been married for many years and think, you know what, this is not working. Or for those of you who have a happy marriage and say, how can I help other couples succeed at this? We're going to talk about this, and I believe at the end of these 4 weeks, your view in terms of what love is will be very, very different. So what I want to do today is I just want to set the stage of where we're going for this series. Because when it comes to relationships, we all have expectations. We have an expectations of how to treat each other. We have an expectations of how to solve conflict. We have an expectation of how to behave in a relationship. And perhaps you never define those expectations, but they're there. Those expectations exist. And they happen because of things that we've seen or heard. Things that we read in a book about marriage. Things that the way we see our friends, in marriage. It also has to do with the way, wherever we grew up, the home we grew up in. So we have these expectations due to things that we've seen, we've heard, or things that we experience in the home we grew up in. We all have those expectations. Now, the reason why this is a big deal, the reason why this is so emotional, the reason why this is complicated, is because either we're trying to avoid to repeat something, or we're trying to recreate the relationship that we saw growing up. We're either trying to avoid, hey, I don't want to end up like my parents. I don't want to end up like mom. I don't want to end up like dad. Or we're trying to recreate that. I want to be this. I have an idea of what a marriage should look like. But the problem is that there's a part in your relationship or your relationships that is a different thing, which is this element of me. There's this element of, will that work for me? Will that work in our marriage? Yes, it worked for my parents. Yes, it worked in this great relationship. Or no, it didn't work here. But would it ever work for me? Because when it comes down to our past experience in terms of relationships, I think we can say that it's possible for others to have a great marriage. But when we think about our own, maybe we don't think it's even probable. And the reality is that this series is not about how to fall in love, because that's easy. Fall in love is easy. I mean, all you require is a pulse. That's it. You can fall in love. But remaining in love, that is complicated. In fact, let me give you a few stats, because with technology, did you know that 40% of people here in the United States use online dating? For those of you who are single. This is good research right now. I'm going to give you a couple of stats. 20% of current committed relationships started online dating. 63% started by a friend of a friend. So if you want to meet that special one, probably your relationships actually will give you a better result. But 20% actually start online nowadays. Now, 53% of people who use online dating, they admit to have lied in their profiles. More than half. They exaggerate in their profiles. So falling in love, we can not think of better times to meet, connect with someone. But remaining in love, that, I think, requires a plan. So how do we make relationships a positive experience? Because that's what we want. We don't want to just be in a relationship. We don't just want to survive the years. We want to thrive in our marriages. We want to be able to be excited about seeing our spouse coming from work. But the stats are against us. Now, a group of very smart people got together and they did a study. And they come up with a list of things that you need in order to have a healthy relationship as an adult. Ready? This is what you need. Big doses of this growing up will make you have a successful, healthy relationship as an adult. This is what these people said. This is what you need. You need respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. That's it. Sounds like the home you grew up in, right? Respect, encouragement, comfort, security, support, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. Now, if that's what it takes to have a healthy relationship, what are the odds for us to be successful in our marriages? And even, that's not even taking in consideration that you're putting your life with someone else that probably didn't have respect, encouragement, comfort, security, and all those things, right? And what happens is you and I, our expectation is, hey, I need this in our marriage. I need you to be supportive. I need you to be respectful, encouragement, security, acceptance, approval, appreciation, attention, and affection. Are you going to give me this, or are you just good looking? Are you going to give me this, or do you just have a nice job? And what happens is, actually, what we end up doing in our relationships is, what we do see is guilt, convincing, coercing, pressure, control. And we have the other list, these expectations that you and I think makes, or we should have, in order to be a healthy marriage. Now, Another thing, to make this just, again, today I'm just going to set the tension. Another thing that makes this so difficult is our culture has a very low pain threshold relationally. Our culture has a very low pain threshold emotionally, which means sometimes it doesn't have to hurt enough or too bad, and we decide to get out. Because what the message that we hear in culture is that if you're not happy, you're probably not with the right person. I mean, long are the days that we say, hey, because I said I do, I mean I do, and we're going to do, and we're just going to do. We're going to keep on doing. Those days are far long gone. Today, when we view relationships, we think, if I'm not happy, maybe I'm just with the wrong person. Maybe I choose poorly. Maybe I need to re-choose. Maybe I need to get out. Maybe I need to start all over to find my soulmate. But if you ever talk to people who have been married for 20 plus years, they will tell you that there was a season in their marriage where they wondered if they had the right person. And it wasn't that they picked the right person. It's that they made the decision to make the person they were with the right person. Because choosing to be the right person is part of it. Learning to become the right person is a lifelong decision. And this is why it's so difficult to navigate in terms of our relationships. Now, today I want to give you a foundation in terms of where we're heading for the next 4 weeks. And I believe that today, our bottom line is going to be where we're going to kind of continue adding for this series and breaking it down for all of us. And what I love, by the way, I'm not saying when I speak on this and when I speak on anything, I'm not saying ever that my marriage is perfect or that I have figured it out. And some of you are like, really? What do you have? I'm older than you, David. Like, what do you have to tell me about marriage? And maybe you're right. You could be absolutely right. But every time I grab the scriptures, and every time I even spend time with my wife, when I ever do anything like this, I grow so much. And this is why I get so passionate and so excited. Because as you are growing, I'm growing as well. So what I want to share with you today is going to be a little bit counterintuitive. It's going to be a little bit of a different mindset maybe that you've had in terms of relationships and marriage. But it's very simple. In fact, it's so simple that you're going to be tempted to say, David, I heard that before. Really? You're going to be tempted to say, I thought you were going to bring something more profound, richer, that you were going to give us homework. But the reality is, I think that for the next 4 weeks, I believe that God, not me, God will shift the way you think about love. Because it's rare to see a successful marriage in today's world. So one day, Jesus is with his disciples, and he tells them this: a new command I give you. I've given you 10 commandments, and you know those. I've given you 600 and plus laws, and you know those. But today I'm going to give you a new command. And I believe what he meant with new was not that it was so much different. It was that what I'm going to tell you is going to change the way you think, or what you think you knew. In John 13, verse 34, he says this: love one another. That's it. Let me pray. No, I'm just kidding. No. You're like, really, David? You should have studied harder, David. That's it. Love one another. But listen to this. Jesus does something incredibly smart. I mean, he was God. But he takes this idea of love being a noun and he makes it a verb. This is an imperative. It's a command. He says, guys, I want you to love one another. And he's saying, I know love is like something you fall into, like a pool, or something you fall out of, like a chair. But I don't want you to view love that way, like a noun. I want you to view it as a verb. In other words, if you would have issues with your marriage and you come, Jesus, I need counseling. Can you give me marriage counseling? He's like, sure, let's sit down and talk. And the first thing he will ask is like, are you loving your wife or your husband? And you probably say, well, I used to. He'll say, no. I used to now. He will say, I'm going to fix your marriage right now. Go home and love one another. And you and I will be like, no, but that's the problem, Jesus. I don't love her, or I don't love him anymore. Yeah, but you're confusing a noun with a verb. What you're trying to say is that you're not feeling it. And I want you to feel it. In order for you to feel it, you gotta do it. You see, in relationships, when things get complicated, you and I think, I'm not feeling it. When was the last time I felt in love? And then we're like, oh, when we were dating, I should start all over. I should have a restart. And Jesus is like, no. This is not how this works. If you want to thrive in your marriage, you need to stop treating love as a noun and start treating love as a verb. So here is my bottom line for this series, and I hope that you come back, because otherwise you're going to take me out of context, but here we go. The foundation of a thriving, loving marriage is to make love. Pause. A verb. I almost wanted to call it that, just for fun. But the foundation of any great relationship in terms of marriage, today and the next Sunday, I'm just going to focus on marriage, and then we're going to go out into all kinds of relationships. But it's to make love a verb. That is the foundation. And I think sometimes we compromise and we settle on this, because we start viewing our relationship as a contract. And when you view your relationship as a contract, if the other person doesn't do his part or her part, you say, I'm out. You're not doing your part. But whenever we view our relationship as a contract, we lose trust. We lose trust on the relationship. We lose trust on each other. And I'm going to give you a little secret. You cannot be fully intimate with someone to whom you are not willing to trust. In other words, you cannot give yourself completely to someone you don't completely trust. See, this is so key, because I'm not just talking about just all physical relationship. I'm talking about this idea that we try to fix a lot of other things, and the most simple, most basic part of our relationship in building trust, we kind of skip that one. And if you're single today, and one day you want to have an amazing relationship, it has nothing to do with being physical, not at all. It has everything to do with trust. Now, Jesus doesn't just leave this here. He actually goes, and I believe what he says next is extremely profound. Because in a way, he's trying to say love is something that you do actively. In verse 34, chapter 13, he says, as I have loved you, you must love one another. In other words, I don't want you to learn what love is or how to love from culture. I don't want you to know what love is or how to love from your past experiences. I mean, yes, maybe your parents are married, but they sleep on separate rooms. Oh, and one of them rather takes a vacation with their pet than with each other. And Jesus said, I don't want you to get your cue in terms of those relationships from the people around you. I want you to think and learn what love is from me, from Jesus. And if you allow him to, he will teach you what love is. Not to fall in love. That's easy. That's simple. how to remain in love. Later in the scriptures, the Apostle Paul makes this same point using different words. And this is the practical part of our teaching. If you say, okay, David, I get it. Love is a verb, but how? What does that look like? Paul also addresses this. And he uses a very, very strong word. Some of you are like, I don't like that word. Or maybe you feel kind of like it's politically incorrect. But he uses a very strong word and it gets our attention. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21, he says this: submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. He's saying the goal of a thriving relationship is mutual submission. Mutual submission says, in our relationship, in my relationship with my spouse, she is a priority. And he says for her, in our relationship, you are the priority. It is a kind of relationship that losing becomes a way of life. It's a competition to see who can listen to, care for, serve, forgive, accept the other one the most. It's a marriage that becomes a competition to see who can behave in the most healing and honor and dignified way towards the other. But it's extremely scary. It's scary because one person in the relationship has to be the first one to say, it's about you. It's not about me. And that's extremely, extremely hard. And when I use this word submission, what I'm not saying, it has nothing to do with gender, roles, birth order. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that it's making a decision in choosing the other person first. It's basically saying, you first. No, you first. No, you first. And I know maybe you say, David, that doesn't make sense. It does. And throughout this series, I think, you will have an aha moment, a moment where you say, this is what it means to really love my spouse in a different way, in a way where it becomes a submission, competition. When you say you first, no, you first. No, you first. Now, this is not an idea that I came up with. This is actually Paul and Jesus breaking this down for us, the way that Jesus lived his life for you and for me. And one of the greatest rewards I get as a pastor is when I meet a person or a couple who did not have the list of support, encouragement, affection, but because they have an encounter with Jesus, their whole idea of how to love each other changes. And they will tell you that they're not loving each other just for the other person's sake. They will tell you it's because they learned that Jesus loved them first. And that's what Paul actually, says to you and me. In a way, it's not what we saw and what we experience when it comes to relationship. It is how we are loved right now. That Jesus gave his life and he showed us what submission was. Paul in Ephesians 2 says this: walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us. You see, this series is not about couples. That's why I say I hope it triggers something in you internally. This series is to realize that you're broken, just as I'm broken. And that the message of Jesus, the message of the gospel, says you don't have to cover up and hide any longer. That you have a Father that loves you the way you are and still wants to be close to you. And he says, if you let me in, I can help you. I can heal you. And you can move forward. Move in any situation you're currently in. You can move forward through a hard marriage. You can move through a painful transition, perhaps. You can move through and push forward in your singleness. And God says, I love you and I care so much for you that I don't want you to just have a mediocre relationship. So, is it possible for two people to remain in love? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it just doesn't happen by accident. It happens by making love a verb. And every day deciding, hey, you are the priority in my life. And it's not about, do I have the right person? It's by making the person you're with the right one and doing the right things. It is a submission competition. You first. You first. And this is why we say love is for losers. Let me pray for you. Father God, I know this so easy to just talk about it. It's so hard to live it. Father, thank you for demonstrating us in such a huge way how much you loved us by sending your Son. In your word, you say, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Lord, help us see love the way you see love. And Lord, for the couple who is here and just barely hanging by a thread, I know it's complicated, Lord. That one teaching is not going to change everything, but would you give them the perseverance? Will you honor their faith and their desire to make things work? Even when all seems lost. Lord, for those of us here who perhaps their spouse is not here, would you give them wisdom to know what to do with this message? And would you also help them in a way that they can be loved and not just expect love? Lord, I pray that even as a community, we'll be open about this. We don't want to be families just surviving the years. And I know people here that are hurting. Lord, will you whisper to them, you're loved. I pray, Lord, that through this series we'll be able to see love the way you see love. Powerful name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. I would like to do something that is a little bit different than how we usually close our Sundays. We send an email every Wednesday at 9 a.m. And what I like to do, you allow us to, I want to ask you for your email. And what we're going to do this week that is different is part of when I did research on this teaching, I came across this book called How We Love. And it's a Christian writer, but they have in their website a 50-minute quiz that it will walk you into learning how do you love individually. So I'm going to ask you two things. One is, would you give us your email? And on Wednesday, you will receive that. And would you take the time to do it? It's only going to take you 15 minutes. It asks you to register, but you can just skip it and say no, and click next, and you'll continue through the quiz. But the other thing I'll ask is, do not talk about it with your partner or your spouse. This is very personal. And what I want to do is actually, next week, I will kind of lay the grounds to see how you can address, if something pop out in that quiz, how do you address that conversation? Because again, the last thing we want to do is just right now going and you're having just a tough conversation. We want this to be an encouraging conversation. We want to walk this journey with you. So if you leave us your email, we're going to send you on Wednesday an email that is going to have an article and a link to take this quiz. Thank you. Will you leave us on?